Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone. This is the weekly Zoom meeting for Learning Life Skills Together, and this is number 63 with Sandy Moser and Beth Watts from Bonsville Mill Park, which is a beautiful place in Downingtown for bird watching and getting the kids out into nature. And so we'll be talking about that in a minute. Right now, as always, we're going to do a little practice to get ourselves settled in and ready to think and listen. And so this is really about attention. This whole idea, the whole thing we're going to be talking about is paying attention to what's happening around you. So I would invite you, if you're in a situation where you can, to close your eyes. If you're listening to this while driving, please don't. So if you close your eyes and just feel into your posture. Maybe you're sitting down, maybe you're lying down, maybe you're standing. Just feeling the fact that gravity is holding you where you are. So there's really not a lot that you need to be doing to be where you are. You might notice your own breath. How is your breathing going? And now, maybe you can open your ears up just a little more, and we will do a practice of mindful listening. So we're just going to allow whatever sounds are in the area to come to our ear, which they'll do whether we want them to or not. But we're allowing it this time. We're just opening up and saying, whatever sounds are here, those are the sounds that are here. We're not judging them. We're not saying, I like this, I don't like that. We're just letting them happen. So in a sense, we're accepting them. So you might be noticing sounds nearby, right up close. You might be noticing sounds further away. If you're in a building, you might even notice sounds outside the building. If you're outside, lucky you. So this is where your attention is, right in the sounds that surround you. Maybe you notice that you don't need to turn your head to hear behind you. Just allowing whatever is there to be what you're hearing. And when you're ready, you might take a deeper breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. You try it once more. And if your eyes have been closed, you could open them. I want to ask my guests how that practice was for them. Did you guys find out, Beth and Sandy?
It was very restful. But then you had to say about being outside. I wish I was.
hmm Yeah, I wanted to turn that on a little bit too to get people thinking about being outside, since that's what you guys are all about. How about you, Beth? What was it like for
Yeah,
you?
it was very nice that you can feel your body slow down and
Mm,
just start to feel being a bit more present instead of thinking ahead and thinking beyond the moment and
yeah.
listening to the birds outside, which is, if we can't be
Mm.
outside, at least that's the next best thing.
It is, it is. And I mean, one of the reasons that we're very interested in birding and being out of doors is because of what happens to us when we hear bird song. Our mind changes, our body mind, so to speak, changes because if birds are singing, it's safe.
Mm.
And we know that as human animals. And so to be surrounded by bird song is to be in a place that's really good. And that's a pretty good segue into Bondsville Mill Park, is that there's a lot of bird song there. As I remember, I was there, I guess, a week ago. And so what a place to just sit and listen to birds and the creek, Beaver Creek, I understand flows right through there and it's spring. And so if you're going to hear a creek, it's going to be in the spring. That's that's when it's going to be loudest. So this is really a chance to talk about Bondsville Mill Park for us who are looking for places to practice paying attention to what's happening around us and how it affects us. Sort of been talking about that. So, can you tell me a little bit about Bondsville and sort of one, where it is, and two, how it got started? A little bit of the history of it?
Go ahead, Beth.
So Bondsville Mill Park is an East Brandywine Township park. So we are nestled in the woods right along Beaver Creek, along what I'm sure back in the 1600s when the first building was first built and the mill
Mm.
was first started was just this quiet, sleepy little road. It's now become a bit busier, but it's still just a two-lane windy road back through the woods and along the creek side. And for years, it had been abandoned. So it was in operation. The mill was in operation between the late 1600s, early 1700s, all the way up through. They had business there until the 1950s. So the
Wow.
interesting thing is from that perspective, it transitioned through all of the time periods, the progression through the industrial age. It went from water power to steam power to electric power, and then as that mill declined and they stopped supporting it, it just became this invasive place. It was left for the buildings to begin to crumble and for invasive species to enter in. And a lot of people actually forgot that it was there. But in the midst of what was uncovered back in 2015,
Mhm.
2005, I think they purchase the
Yes, yes, it was.
the site through open space funds so that it wouldn't become a development. 2015, though, is when Sandy and her crew and many of the legacy people that have been involved with Bondsville Mill started to remove some invasive species. And lo and behold, what they found was this treasure of what has now turned out to be some beautiful gardens and arboretum space. They pulled out invasives and they found nestled next to the babbling brook milkweed. And once they did that,
Mm.
grew some flowers and
Yeah. The milkweed was a real turning point. We were putting up the sign that you saw and cleared out all these invasives, took really, really were doing a job. And then went home and it rained a little bit it rained a lot for the next 2 days. Went back and darned there was milkweed coming up. And that was it. This is now going to be, instead of where we were planning on having a butterfly milkweed garden, this was now the new location.
Ah,
And we
wow.
spent the summer working on saving that milkweed, making sure it made it through what the dirt. And to top it all off, our garden was built on top of a cement slab that had been a previous building. So it's milkweed will plant milkweed, it will survive. It's just wonderful, a wonderful
Mm.
plant for a native species.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's great. And right now, in what we're rolling out in the course itself is about resilience. And so, just sort of this hearing this story, and especially hearing the story about the milkweed coming up where we didn't even expect it, but there it is and thriving, and sort of turning everything into well, turning nothing into something and then something else. Yeah. So
It's even better than that, Don.
butterfly
It turned
garden.
us into a monarch station. And
Mm,
we are now fairly well recognized as a place where you can come and release monarchs. All the volunteers
wow.
are willing to take the monarch caterpillars home when we find them, feed them, and feed them and feed them because they eat an awful lot,
Mm,
and then bring them back when they turn into a butterfly. And we advertise this on a regular basis that people can come and release the butterflies. We'll sit them on their hands and even, I mean, all ages love to do this. They cannot believe that they're sitting there holding what is actually an endangered species in their hand and wish
mm.
well as it migrates towards Mexico.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So where do the caterpillars come from? I mean, how
from the park, from the gardens
the
within
park
the park.
itself? Okay.
While the gardeners are there, just doing our cleanup and taking care of the plants, sometimes we'll see a caterpillar, and we've learned actually to save them and to continue to feed them milkweed in our home habitats and bring them back to the park. We do that. It sounds a little odd that we might do that. Why not just leave them out in nature? But we have also found that in nature, there are also some predators, some of them
Hmm.
not our native predators. And when we found some invasive mantis species
Oh,
that were eating the caterpillars, we
That was
decided
it.
we would save them, bring them back
yeah.
as butterflies. And there's nothing more magical than watching a child as you place a monarch butterfly right on their hands in front of their nose
Mm,
and let them look
wow.
eye to eye and wait for this precious monarch to decide
Yeah.
when or if it wants to fly away. And sometimes we've been tickled and so just laughing because they've been so content with who they're sitting with. They don't fly away for a
That
while.
they don't go.
Or maybe they fly
Mexico.
to the top
Yeah.
of their head and sit on their head for a bit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some
So,
pictures of people holding monarchs, and some of them are senior citizens. And the smile is ear to ear. I mean, they are just amazed that they're holding this again, monarch butterfly. And we are, this past year, we didn't have as many releases as normal But 2 years ago, we had over 200, we released over 200 tagged monarchs. We put a tag on their wing.
Wow.
We're associated with Monarch Watch, and the tag is just a tiny little spot. We put it on the wing and release the butterfly. We have not found any of our butterflies yet in Mexico, but there have been some reported down the East Coast as far south as North Carolina. And frankly, I believe our monarchs make it to Mexico. It's just people don't find their tags.
Yeah. So when does this is this like a single event, or is it
Oh,
every
no.
time a monarch is ready to go, it goes?
Yes, exactly. We start we start releasing in mid-August. Actually, we aren't, Monarch Watch will not permit us to tag until mid-March.
Ah,
Although we release some butterflies prior to that, but they want, in our area, they do not want them to be released until August.
August. Yeah.
August.
August.
Yeah. So mid-August on, people could run into that happening, or
Yes.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
Absolutely.
all through the summer, once the monarchs start laying their eggs and we find the caterpillars, we have displays of, the monarchs in their different periods, because these monarchs, when they come back from Mexico, will take 4 generations of monarchs before they're ready to go back to Mexico again. So it's only that fourth generation, August to October, that actually gets that size and that development that takes them all the way from the Northeast down to Mexico. It's amazing that this small butterfly has the DNA in it to know
Yeah.
that these early generations don't have to be so big, but that last generation needs to be a whopper, and boy, they are.
They're really much larger butterflies, and it's even when we bring our habitats with the caterpillars in them on Saturdays and Mondays when we're all there, and just sit them out for people to watch. And all those little caterpillars do is eat. I mean, you can
So
uh,
that's pretty
they
much,
keep chomping
yeah.
away, and if they get outside of the habitat by some accident, they scoot right back in because they want to be where that milkweed is.
Yeah. So let me get this straight. So pretty much through Saturdays and Mondays through the later part of the summer, you can go and you'll probably see the caterpillars feeding,
Yes.
and
Yes,
yeah,
they will. Yep.
and
We have a
maybe
number of other kinds of butterflies in the park, probably as many as 30 different species. And we have planted other plants specifically for those species so that they will survive and people will be able to come into the park and see them. We have one garden that is fenced, and that garden has annual flowers in it that are always blooming. And that's where we encourage people to go to see the butterflies, because the butterflies just congregate on those flowers.
wow.
People can come within feet
Mhm.
of being nose to nose with any kind of a swallowtail, a tiger swallowtail or a spicefish swallowtail. Um, so it's a great opportunity, and
Yeah.
area you will find the people, the guys with the cameras, with the big long lenses and so forth, getting really sharp photos of our butterflies.
It honestly is a result of a lot of that reclamation. That very first garden that Sandy talked about back in 2015, which turned into the milkweed and butterfly garden, was such a success that she said, well, we need another garden now for the pollinators for a longer season. So that generated the pollinator garden. And then
Right.
it's such a success that the next thing was when we noticed that there were hummingbirds in a garden area down by the creek. We went, well, we'll just make this the hummingbird garden.
Yep.
And one garden begat another, which
Yeah.
begat another,
So,
which
so you've got a butterfly garden, a hummingbird garden, a pollinator garden, by which I guess you mean bees? Or is
Oh,
it
we
another
have,
whole area?
yeah. with the Chester County beekeepers have hives at the park, and they are safely corralled behind a fence. And the beekeepers use these as an educational tool for those that they're training. Uh, However, the honeybees are all over the place, and as long as you don't disturb them when they're on a flower, all is good. We have yet to have anyone complain about being stung. So we have all of the honeybees hanging around. Plus, we have that bee hotel that I showed you. And that is the home of the thin waist wasp and also the mason bee. And if you recall, both of those, some of those holes were sealed. So we know that there are eggs in there, and those bees will be coming out as soon as it's warm enough for them to survive.
Yeah. Such an incredible resource, really. All of these specialized gardens. And that's just sort of right, easy walk from the parking lot.
Yes, it is. And it's also something that people can just go up. We leave educational material out. At the Bee Hotel, there's a booklet that explains what's going on. So you don't have to, you could just stop there, sit on the bench and look through the booklet and then have a better understanding. You don't need someone standing there explaining what's going on. And at the honeybees, we had an Eagle Scout project that shows what's going on in the hives. So people can just stand there, look in those boxes, pull out the different slides and see what it is the hummingbird, or excuse me, the bumblebee was up to. And this is good because we're not always there. We can only be there on Mondays, our
Sure.
hours, or Monday mornings and Saturday mornings. So we try to do what we can to encourage people to enjoy the park. And I had told you about the scavenger hunt papers that we hand out.
Right.
And
Yeah.
these are things just to hand the kids when they're going through. It gives them something to talk about with their parents or whoever they're with. And I will tell you that they take them home because we have not yet found one of those papers on a trail or in the parking lot.
Wow. Okay. So lots of interesting things to see. And that sort of leads me to my next sort of question or prompt for you all, which is it's not just the area around the parking lot where there's stuff, right? So you have amazing walking trails and you have the creeks. So could you talk a little bit about that and how those areas get used?
Sure. We have, it's a 47-acre park to begin with, and
Hmm.
very diverse topography too. So within that, we have about a little over 2 miles of trails, although they circle back around in so many wonderful ways that people come and they'll make 6 miles out of it if they want to, and just, do different figure eights and things. But what's fascinating about it is that while all that we talked about so far up to now is very easily accessible to people who just want to be able to do a quiet, slow stroll. You can get to the birds, you can get to the gardens, you can get to the creek, you can see all of these things in a very easy stroll. But for those that would like to have a little bit more of an adventurous walk or hike up into the trees, you can take a trail up into what used to be an old pine forest, used to be a Christmas tree farm
Ah,
many, many years ago. Now they're big, tall pines that are intermixed with other hardwoods, but it's a magical area for the kids to go up to. And we frequently find special things that the kids have left, whether it's a painted rock in a hidden spot or a teepee that they've built that they can go in and use as a fort with, fallen sticks and things like that.
hmm,
There are so many examples of the ways that children enjoy this time and families come enjoy it too. And then
right.
continue to want and wander further, and you can see some of the remnants of old races where the walls were built up to create a race to lead down to other mills, because at one point there were 5 mills along Beaver Creek. Bondsville Mill is the only one remaining right
Yeah.
now.
So all of those mills were working off water from Beaver Creek that was going down these raceways,
Right.
and they tried to make it as quick as possible, right? So that there was as much force as possible.
Power. Right.
So yeah, so kind of some steep areas and that kind of thing.
And we have a wonderful trail guide that walks the trails routinely and has kept them groomed and has come up with great places and spaces to add quiet benches and picnic tables along the way.
Oh,
So that as you wander back through the woods, you might find yourself in a quiet place in the woods where that's all that's there is a quiet place to curl up with a book in the middle of the day, or
Absolutely.
just out there by
hmm.
yourself, or down by the water with a picnic table and your family. And just when we thought we had finished with all of that, he always comes up with more places that people can enjoy
Wow.
back in these little hidden areas, which is really nice.
And so these are just discoveries that you get to make,
Yes.
and that our listeners would get to make with their kids.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like oh, look at that. Yeah. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about the creek and what happens there, because kids and water, I don't know, they
We
sort of
have
go
we have two
together.
places on the creek that are shallow enough where the children and the adults wade in and just enjoy the cool, especially in the summertime. They'll
That's
enjoy
what I'm
the
thinking
cool
about.
water.
Yeah.
Although a few weeks ago there were some kids in the water, and I don't know,
Mhm.
that was beyond my
It doesn't take long.
temperature. But at any rate, the kids get in there and they turn the rocks over and they find the various little insects that are water that are under the rocks, and they build little dams, and they just have a really great time playing in the water. Um, we have many photos of kids in the water enjoying this, and the parent there. We have several picnic tables there, and the parents are sitting there keeping an eye on them. But again, the water is shallow and moving very slowly in that area, so it
Hmm.
is a good place to just sit down and listen. You could hear the birds. Usually, the hummingbird is right in that area, and
Oh,
flitting around. We have several water birds in particular, especially, and we have a kingfisher who runs up
kingfisher.
and down
Ooh,
the creek making a racket.
yeah. Oh, my favorite.
It
Yeah.
can be anything from just these simple little pleasures that kids have hopping the rocks out there in the water, or their creative engineering while they build boats out of tree bark and leaves and then see which one goes down the creek faster.
Right.
It's
Right.
so many different ways that they enjoy it.
Yeah. Wow. So let's see. I think we've talked about everything except you said arboretum and gardens. And so I'm really interested in what goes on with the plant life as well. Because for older kids, to go out and identify some of the trees that are growing and that kind of thing, pretty interesting stuff. Quiet, but interesting.
It is. We started out with our scavenger hunt, and several years ago we had our scavenger. I had a tree scavenger hunt in the fall. We chose 12. They're all native trees. We chose 12 trees and asked the kids to find leaves for each of those trees, and they put together a little booklet. Then they turned them in. I mean, it was just a great experience, and now we are a level one arboretum. We're not quite a year old yet, but we are now a level one arboretum. We have 31 trees that have been identified, and again, they are all native trees. Many of them are young because when we said earlier that we plant trees for specific butterflies, for specific insects,
Yeah.
that's the only way a tree will get into it. We'll purchase a tree to be planted. We have pawpaw trees now because that is the only host plant for the zebra swallowtail. We have hop trees, which is the one of the two host trees for the oh, what is it? The super monarch,
The
super
blue swallowtail.
Giant swallowtail, yes,
Yeah.
giant swallowtail. And that baby, he's about 4 inches wide. He comes swooping through there, and you think it's a bat. It's
Wow.
we're really pleased with our how our arboretum is pulling together. We're going to have our very first Arbor Day on April 26th, and we'll have tables set up, and we're going to focus on the creek area that we just talked about. We're going to focus on 7 trees that are right in that specific area. We'll have people there to talk, show the people the trees. The trees will be wearing great big bows, so there's no mistaking them for something else. And we'll have information sheets to hand out. We have a group of high school students from STEM who are involved with a Pennsylvania program called Envirothon, and they are also going to be studying the trees. I'm hoping that they'll be available to help us on the 26th.
Hmm. Yeah. And so the 26th of April, that's something for people to put on their calendar to go and see the
Absolutely.
trees. And I am particularly interested in pawpaws just because I grew up singing, picking up pawpaws, put them in your pocket. And so anybody with small children who wants to actually see the thing itself that they're singing about would do well to come by. So what I'm thinking about here is that we, in learning life skills together, really encourage people to get out into nature because it does so many things for us. As I was saying, our whole body changes when we hear bird song. It changes if we go for a 10-minute walk, we change our whole mood. We change the way we are. And for kids to see that and understand that, and maybe just a tiny, prompt from a parent at that point can really help them to share. Oh, you know what? I'm feeling really, really lighter than when we got here. How about you? That's really all it takes for a child to understand. Oh, this is good for me. This makes me feel better. This shifts something in me. And so, we have this idea of walking and birding, and I want to say butterflying at Bondsville, is really, really just an amazing thing to offer. But the other thing that we're offering is this idea of experiencing awe. And when we experience awe, when we're in the presence of something that is so beautiful or so unexpected, like a 4-inch butterfly flying at us, that changes us as well. And that gives us something to work with for a long time. I mean, I imagine having that experience and thinking back on it a lot and using that as one of those sort of ways of anchoring yourself when you're not outside and when things aren't going your way. And it's like, well, once I had a butterfly this big right up by my face.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So these are the connections that I'm making for learning life skills together, encouraging parents to experience awe, to pay attention, to do the walking things and the playing things that are just so important with our kids. And it's important, especially as I think I've said in every one of these meetings so far, it's important to do them a lot. It's important to practice them. We don't help our mental health just when we think about it. We should be making it something that we do, something getting out, as you guys said at the very beginning. Well, we're sitting here inside and we wish we were outside. To have that in us is such a gift, and such a gift that the parents can bring to the kids.
One thing that you had said earlier, Don, about birding, and I know that you are a bird watcher. We have a bird area set aside at the park, specifically where we have hanging feeders, and it's a sheltered area in the woods. And we have benches just outside of that area. So people who aren't bird watchers can wander over there and sit on the benches and look in there, and they will see, oh, maybe a half dozen to a dozen different bird species. It's
Yeah,
a special situation because you know that when you're walking along the pathways, the birds hear you and hide. However, this is a different situation where people are just sitting there watching them eat. Um, and in our area, we have so many new people moving in from the city. It's important that they see what a red cardinal is in real life and what a mourning dove is in real life.
yeah.
So I really hope that we get people come and enjoy our birding area just for the simple little area that it is.
Absolutely. And that's another segue, thank you so much, to what is happening on April 6th. And so I'm going to share my screen here just for a second. And so here we are. We have the flyer that we are putting out. This is a program from Learning Life Skills Together and Holly Merker, who's a birding instructor and professional guide who lives in this area, but birds all around the world. And she is working with us to put on a program for parents and kids. So here's what's going to happen on April 6th at 1:30. We're going to get together. We'll probably have a little something to drink, maybe hot chocolate, since April 6th might be cold and it might be warm, and so maybe it'll be something cool, who knows. And we'll come together, get ourselves organized, and the kids are going to go with Holly on a walk on one of the trails to watch birds, to find the birds that are out there, and to see the ones or hear the ones that have run away as well, right? So they will be doing that, and part of what they're going to do is to look for an object in nature. Is to look for an object in nature to bring back with them. And the parents are going to be with me, and we're going to talk about how you can do these kinds of things with your kids, and how it helps as sort of preventive mental health treatment, you know? So how do we keep our kids on the happy side of things, right? And how can nature help? So we'll do that together, and then the parents will take a little 10-minute walk, little 10-minute turn around the park and find an object for themselves. When we bring the two groups together, we're going to make a artwork out of the objects that people have brought. So we'll spread out a cloth, and everybody will get a chance to add something to whatever this thing might turn into, and get to talk about it a little bit. And so finally, um, we'll we'll have a little bit of group birding right there, um, Sandy, at the feeding
I
station.
think that sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
And I
and
know
Oh,
some of my
absolutely.
family, local family, is interested in coming and can't wait for it.
so
I'll
so
underscore what you're saying about Holly. If there's a bird there, Holly will find it and
you
show
will
it.
find. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So everybody feel free to come out on April 6th. And actually, if you go before, one of these posters is posted at the park. So you can get the information right there and sign up.
Yep.
So thank you so much for talking with us about Bondsville Mill Park, which is a fantastic resource for nature and kids and parents. And, at the end of every one of these meetings, I ask our guests for a word of wisdom or a watchword. So, what should we think about? What should we carry away from this meeting?
Well, I'm all for enjoying nature. So it's hard for me to cut it down to just one word, but if I have to, then I'll say enjoy.
Okay, enjoy. That's absolutely what we're pointing out. Awe, attention, beauty. Yeah, feeling that change from how we were to how we are when we're surrounded by beauty and birdsong. Well,
Right.
thank you so much again for talking with us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for having us, Don.